There's a moment every entrepreneur hits. You're working harder than you ever have. The calendar is packed, but the inbox feels endless. That to-do list never gets shorter, and somehow the business still isn't growing the way that it should be. But the problem isn't effort. The problem is leverage. Welcome to the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, John Davidson, and every week I'm sitting down with founders and top performers who have found that lever. The hire, the system, that mindset shift that changed everything. This show is for the business owner who's ready to stop being the bottleneck and start being the architect. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Leverage Podcast. I'm your host, John Davidson, and today I'm excited to be joined by an incredible guest. She's an impactful leader. She's been a very successful real estate agent with over $1 billion sales, over $1 billion in sales over a 25-year career, and she is based in Boise, Idaho, and Sun Valley. April Florczyk, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning.
Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, well, as we were talking before the episode, one of the reasons I'm excited to have you is I do have a little bit of Idaho experience. Many years ago, I was on a skateboarding tour, and it started in Boise, Idaho, specifically Nampa, which is right outside. And then a few years ago, I just had this most incredible vacation in Sun Valley, Idaho, and did not even realize that the very first ski resort in North America, if I have this correct, is based in Sun Valley, and it is just a hidden gem right there in Idaho. Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah. It's pretty incredible. It's a place that when you drive into town, it feels almost like 50 pounds is lifted off your shoulders. You just instantly feel relaxed. It must be something about the nature, the air you breathe, the bluebird skies. It's pretty stunning to see it in person. And It's hard to almost describe the sense of feeling you get when you come into town. And it's something that I hear over and over from people who come to visit.
Yeah, I have lived all over the country. I've driven across the country a gazillion times, and I just had no clue. And just a few years ago that place existed. So I'm excited to have you share with us from the home buyer's perspective. Why don't we start out with what makes both Boise and Sun Valley great places to buy a home?
Goodness, there's a lot of things, but I would say the first thing that comes to mind is we have 4 true seasons here. So if you like variety in your life and a change in the weather and the leaves changing colors, I would say both Boise and Sun Valley are very similar in that arena. Both offer a really a quality of life where it's not all about just the grind every day. It's about incorporating balance in life. So that's something that I think I've embraced over the years. It's taken me several years to get there, but just enjoying the areas that we live. Foothills trails, thousands and thousands of miles of mountain biking trails. And both Boise has the river that runs through it. Sun Valley has the Bigwood River that runs through it. So just a lot of easy access to outdoor amenities.
I love that. I'll also add one of the greatest skate parks in the United States, which I actually have not been to myself. I think they built it just a handful of years ago, but my brother, he lives in Portland, and he has a lot of friends who escaped the Bay Area in California, and so they'll do family trips over to Boise. But I'll look you up next time in town, and we'll make sure to hit the skate park. Let's start off with your career. Take me through when did you first realize the opportunity in real estate and step into it? And take me through that path of then becoming a leader of a team.
Yeah. So I got into real estate fresh out of high school. I was born and raised in Florida, and I moved back to Florida when I graduated high school out of Meridian, Idaho, and started to work for, at the time, the largest developer in the state of Florida. And they were launching a high-rise building on the Gulf Coast, on the Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America. And so my first experience was they released this building, and I was assisting 5 agents, and in one day we pre-sold over $90 million of real estate on the phone. And Whoa. It was this exhilarating moment of going, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. I got a scholarship to come back to Boise and attend Boise State University. So I moved back from Florida to Boise, and I immediately jumped into real estate and aligned myself working with an agent. And just, I don't know. I don't know if I could say I always dreamed about real estate, but I just loved that there were so many different aspects of real estate, whether it was new construction or residential resale or the design component. There was just so many aspects of it that I was drawn to. So
At this point in career, do you have a favorite of those aspects, or is it kind of the combination of those things that keep things fresh that you enjoy?
No, I would say I have a favorite. I love identifying an opportunity that's missing in a market, and either working alongside a developer and builder team and kind of creating the product with the insight that I've had, from just working with buyers for 25 years and walking through homes and hearing certain things over and over that they're drawn to, and then just incorporating that into the design and then seeing it come to fruition from paper to life. So
Yeah.
That kind of lights me up.
Well, I do know that you are very well connected with builders, with investors, with folks involved with economic development. For those agents who are listening and watching the podcast, share the importance of developing that network so that you are involved in all these different complementary pieces of building and developing an area beyond just the buyers and the sellers themselves.
Yeah. I think I've never had a lot of fear in my life. So when I first got into real estate, I realized that when I would sit in an open house for a new construction home, the builder would walk in and he was just like me, right? Checking on his job site or his home, wanting to know what the activity was and, buyer's perspective, what they were saying. And it just made me realize that a developer or a builder is no different than I am. And we're somewhat aligned, right? They're making a living building a product and selling a product. And so immediately for me, I said, I need to understand kind of what they do and get involved with them, because it's all kind of interconnected. So I dove into new construction and development right at the start of my career. But if you do a good job, people just naturally bring real estate up and they're going to continue to call you. So a big aspect of our business is also residential resale.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think like any other business, building that community out and all the different touch points rather than just the specific thing that you do. If you have, let's say, builders, you're top of mind, or you have a great relationship with them, right? And so that word of mouth that is so important in real estate can come from the other aspects of the industry in addition to the clients who you've treated well over the years.
Yeah. And I think what I realized is we're all spread thin on our time, right? So when I would interact with builders or developers, I'd always try to bring them insight or data or something that they were probably too busy to research or dive into on their own, because we're all we're all wearing 20 different hats a day, right? Yeah. And so it just really made the conversations easy to start the dialogue, because I would always bring them and lead with something of value.
Yeah, that's great advice. Now, I know obviously now you have an all-star team. And so you sit in this role of CEO, leader, founder, right? Take me through what that transition was for our audience who are either, contemplating building a team, or maybe they've built a team and they're at the beginning and they're still trying to figure this out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm still in midst transition, I feel like. About, I would say 6 months ago, I made the decision, because for 25 years, I have done the bulk of the business and transactions. I have been in the thick of it with buyers and sellers and builders and developers, working directly with the clients and bringing deals together. And after so many years, you kind of hit a wall, right? You get a little bit of burnout, and I'm a firm believer, for not growing, we're dying. And so I kind of got to a point where I was like, something's got to shift or change. I can't continue to operate at this level, because on average, I was doing, kind of overseeing the team and doing about 40 transactions a year, which was just a lot.
Yeah.
And I always had an interest in investing myself. So juggling like a personal investment or two a year on top of all of that, it just didn't leave much time for that work-life balance I mentioned earlier in the
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
So I just, I actually used incorporated AI to kind of help me evaluate things. And I started just running through numbers. I've been a single mom for the majority of my life. And so being the main breadwinner in the house, the only breadwinner in the house, I had to really evaluate the financial aspect on trying to transition out of being the lead sales agent. And so I incorporated AI and just ran through a bunch of the numbers and understood I'm truly at a point where, I think we naturally kind of have a scarcity mindset, and I had to shift that and made the decision of I need to hand off all of the transactions so that I can spend more of my time truly leading the team and being the visionary that I am. But I'm very data driven, so I had to understand the numbers and realize, okay, I can still pay my bills even if I hand off all of these transactions, and I'm giving, a chunk of the compensation to other agents who are working alongside me. So that was a big moment in my life. And so we did that transition about 6 months ago, and it's been pretty incredible, to say the least.
Wonderful. Gives you time to guest on a podcast.
Yeah. I never would have had time to do anything like this before.
Yeah. I think it's very common across all industries that a founder becomes the bottleneck or keeps being the bottleneck. And I don't know, there's a lot of our identity in doing the work or things need to be done a certain way. I know I felt that at times in a business I used to run. And, take me through how you were able to figure out how to step into the right role so that you're not a bottleneck, but with your team still providing the quality that you demand of yourself. How are you able to identify those bottleneck moments and then hire to open that up to do more business as a team?
So I think the big aha for me was when I initially started to grow a team years ago. Brand new agents were drawn to you, right? And that's kind of what you look to hire, as someone that you can kind of train and form into who you want them to be. But that is very time consuming. Working with someone who is what I would call green in the real estate world, right? They're just getting their feet wet. So the kind of aha moment I had was, there are certain agents in the business that I had reached out to over the years, and I would brainstorm with on a negotiation or a pricing strategy, or just the people that you respected and you reach out to for help. And I just had this moment. I was like, if I was aligned with other experts with experience that I've already respected in the business, I would have zero reservation on handing business off, because I highly respect them. They do an incredible job. And so I kind of transitioned and I said, I need to focus on experienced agents that have been in the business, that already have a book of business, and align with them to hand off the clients that I have, worked with for 20 plus years here locally. So.
Yeah. So what you're telling me is, rather than going with the young gun who is ambitious and has a lot of free time, but also doesn't have the experience, you found more success working with more of an experienced all-star squad who are kind of versions of you, for lack of a better term, right? Rather like what you could do with a client specifically. There's no hand-holding required, and so that really helps to scale the business that you can do under your brand.
Yeah. And it didn't happen overnight, right? I mean, these were years of, relationships being built and conversations and planting seeds and being like, I would love to work with you someday or align with you someday. And then what I realized, what all of these agents also had a high level of respect for me and what I'd built kind of on my own. Yeah. So when the conversation started to kind of unravel, we realized there really is a mutual benefit here. But again, it's aligning with people that realize that there are opportunities everywhere and they do not have a scarcity mindset. There's enough business to go around. Yes. That everybody will win and like all ships will rise together, right?
That's a great point. I do want to get into that mindset that you've mentioned, avoiding scarcity and getting to a growth mindset. But first, let's listen to a message from our sponsor, Sphere Rocket.
Business owners and entrepreneurs will place a proven executive assistant VA for just $4 to $8 an hour, and if they don't perform, you don't pay. Imagine freeing up 20 plus hours a week by someone handling your most time consuming tasks like admin work, managing emails, scheduling meetings, and so much more. This one hire could transform your productivity and give you back the time you need to focus on growing your business. At Sphere Rocket VA, we make this possible in as little as 7 days. We'll place a proven executive assistant VA in your business for just $4 to $8 an hour, and your VA will take over day-to-day administrative tasks, help manage your email and calendar, follow up with past clients, giving you back 20 plus hours a week so you can increase your sales and even enjoy more personal time. And here's the best part. If they don't give you back 20 plus hours a week in the first month, you don't pay Sphere Rocket a dime. We've done this for thousands of business owners, and now it's your turn to see the results. Click the link around this video to schedule a demo and discover how this one hire can completely change how you run your business. Remember, if within 45 days the VA doesn't perform, you don't pay.
All right, we're here with April Florczyk once again, and she is sharing all sorts of insights from starting in real estate to building a team. And what's, I would argue, most important across business is the mindset. You know, there's a quote that I love. It's something like, whether you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're probably right. And so what we're speaking about specifically is evolving from a scarcity mindset to a growth mindset. First of all, April, how can people make this transition? I mean, a lot of times we naturally have the scarcity mindset and we look at other people thinking, wow, it's great that you just, see growth and see opportunity and see, a boundless future. But how have you been able to effectively develop this mindset? Or is it something that you've kind of always had?
Well, there's a couple things. So I've always been a firm believer in protecting my mind and what I fill my head with. So even down to the music that I listen to, definitely more focused on positivity versus negativeness. I feel like there are so many different things that we can fill our heads with. And so every morning I'm an early riser. I hit the gym early, like typically about 5 a.m. And instead of listening to music, I typically listen to some sort of podcast, some sort of YouTube where it's just about understanding that I'm the only person that I can control. Like I'll invest in the stock market. I have zero control over what happens in the stock market. I'll invest in real estate. I somewhat have control over that, right? But I think when it comes to, I always would just bet on myself. I'm the one person that I could control what time I got up, what I was willing, how many hours I was willing to put in. And so for me, it made it an easy decision of I'm the one person that I can control, the only thing that I can control in my life. Can't control my kids. Been trying for years. So it was just really easy for me to firmly believe in myself and bet on myself because that's the one thing that I can control. So
yeah, that's really interesting. There, in our world with so much media and all sorts of things, it's really easy to get down and frustrated, and so or feel like I can't do this because there's so many different things. But I love that aspect of just narrowing it down. Like if I can only control myself, let me then make sure that I am taking the actions and doing the things that set me up for success as an individual, right?
yeah. And I will say, like, I've kind of thought about this a lot because I did start young in real estate, and then I became a single mom, and then I had three kids, which was a lot. I had an incredible support system, a huge village to help me, but it was almost, I feel like, a survival mechanism where I realized you have to lead by example, and I had to be the best leader for those three kids, and I had to show them anything is possible if you want to go after it.
Yeah.
So that was probably like, if there was a driving force in my life, that was the driving force of, I have to show these kids that I can create the world that I want for them on my own. So.
Yeah, that's well said. I have an 11-year-old son, and I can definitely attest to, when you have that mindset of, let me be the example of what I want this kid to grow up to be, rather than just I'm my own human being and I'm making whatever choices. Definitely helps you make uh, good choices that are good as an example, but also good for you as an adult that enable you to thrive. I do know that you are a risk taker. And so kind of in coordination with this growth mindset, take me through the risks or that mindset of being a risk taker. How do you approach risk? Uh, are there are you looking at things and like, well, where on the the spectrum of a risk taker would you say you are? I guess is the good way to start.
I think an ultra conservative risk taker. I
Okay.
only take a risk if I am 150% confident it's going to work out. And that comes from I'm very data driven and I research a lot.
Mm,
So I really want to understand when I'm evaluating a risk, I'm really looking at um, for example, if I'm going to build a spec home, I'm looking at who is the competition? What does the competition look like? How much of it am I competing with? How much inventory, if the market were to come crashing down and is sitting, like I'm evaluating all of those things before making the decision to move forward.
and that's a huge difference between what people might think of a risk taker, just like I'm jumping and I believe in myself, but let's see what happens. You're a calculated risk taker by really doing a lot of your homework
Yeah.
and sounds like you have a strong plan B or maybe even a plan C because of all the homework that you're doing before taking that jump.
100%. And I didn't start to take risks right out of the gate. Well, I shouldn't say that. I developed a subdivision probably 2 years into being licensed. But
As one
I will
does. Yeah.
say, have always lived well below my means, and
Yeah.
especially in real estate and sales. You can make
Hmm.
several big sales and start to like, oh, I need a new car, or I need that second home, or I need to go buy a boat. And I just, for years, lived well below my means with the
Yeah.
mindset
Right.
of, always having enough in the bank for savings. And so that's why I say ultra conservative is yes, I'm taking risks and, doing things that a lot of people don't do in the real estate world. A lot of people just focus on sales and don't think through the investment or truly building wealth aspect of it.
Yeah.
But it took me years of living below my means to get there.
Yeah, so I think for our listeners, the takeaway is not necessarily be a risk taker, but be ambitious, do your homework, believe in yourself, and go for it,
Yeah.
right? Well, you've mentioned a couple times on this episode so far about wealth building and the real estate portfolio that you've developed. I'd love to share with our listeners how they can do that for themselves. So, first of all, when in your career did you understand the opportunity for investing and wealth building, or was that something that was built into you when you were younger before you got into real estate?
No, I unfortunately I didn't have really anyone coaching me. I'm pretty good at identifying opportunities. Maybe I just naturally see them, but we are as agents, we're advising our sellers on what to do, right? To get a house ready to go to market or how to increase its value. Or I'm advising a builder on what to build or a developer on what's missing in the market. And you one day wake up and you say, why am I advising them to do all of this when I have the knowledge
Good
from the
point.
experience and from working with buyers and sellers? And again, saying like, you have to recognize patterns in life. And so, for example, one pattern I recognize in a 4-season market is summer and winter are always slow. So you have to, those are times or seasons
Mm,
of my life that we need to focus on building the business and the foundation of the business and be prepared for the busy seasons of life, which year over year, the pattern has been spring and fall are our best sales seasons.
mm,
So I would say I would recognize patterns, right?
yep.
And then act on those patterns and share those patterns with the people that I was working with.
Yeah, the seasonality of the business, right?
Yeah.
And you actually answered my next question before I asked it. I was thinking, okay, a lot of real estate agents are saying, I don't have time for this other stuff, right? You're working when other people aren't working so they can tour the homes. There's probably no limit of work that you could be doing. And so just, I'm putting myself in the agent's shoes here and thinking, gosh, April, when do I have time to even focus on these investments, learn about it when I'm got all my time doing these other things? And correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're saying identifying the seasonality of the business and then leaning in the slow times to make those times productive with that revenue stream and investments and wealth building, and then focus on selling and buying the homes when that's in the spring and the fall.
Yeah, I mean, I would say definitely seasonality, but also identifying what is worth your time. And that includes who you're working with. I think in the beginning, you start to build your business, right? You take everything you can get. But as as the years go by and you have more experience and you get a little more mature, you start to identify the people who you want to align with and you want to work with. So a big thing is just learning who to say no to and what things to say no to.
Oh, good point. Well, on that note, one of my favorite questions I love asking guests is about the lessons they've learned through failure. And so, we're talking to a lot of top performers on the show, a lot of successful people, but it's rare that we learn great lessons through success, unfortunately, right? Take me to a moment in your career that maybe it felt like a failure at the time, or maybe it was a failure, but it resulted in one of the most valuable lessons you've learned to date.
Yeah. Probably one of my biggest failures was identifying a couple of key pieces of land and bringing them to a developer and pouring, my heart and soul and time and life into building and working with that developer on these developments. And then when there was a lull in the market, the developer switched gears and went with a different team,
Oh no.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about knife to the heart. Like those lessons are hard, right? And in the moment, it was excruciating, right? Realizing that the builder developer wouldn't even have the opportunities if they weren't brought to them, right? And so
Right.
my big aha in that moment was, next time I come across an opportunity like this, I will have financial skin in the game where that opportunity can't be taken away from me, right? So for years, agents will build businesses and they'll continue to bring opportunities to builders and developers. And then there's a lot of risk in that because, developers are saying, well, you're getting the entire development and let's talk about cutting your fee back because I'm bringing you $30 million of real estate. And it's tough because it's like, well, the opportunity wouldn't exist if the vision wasn't painted and the land wasn't brought. So I think I've learned that. And what really catapulted me into investing and building my own wealth was I need to have skin in the game on these opportunities. I have the vision. I'm finding them. I need to have skin in the game to benefit on those opportunities.
Yeah. What is a common mistake that, less experienced agents make in this? Is it not having skin in the game? Is it not understanding how you will benefit long term or something else?
I would say it's having the uncomfortable conversations at the start of the business relationship. You know what I mean?
Yes.
The stuff that you don't want to even address needs to be addressed at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to run a business and there are all these caveats of the process of a project. And it was uncomfortable, and sometimes you'd be scared. It was early in my career too, so I was scared maybe I might lose the deal if I said all the awkward, uh, unhappy parts of the process before. But what I found every single time is if I skipped over any part of that discussion, it would come back to bite me.
Right.
And then on the other side of that coin, when you have that conversation early on, first of all, it's recorded, so you want to document these things. And you can go back and say, hey, remember, when we were creating this video, we agreed to X amount of revisions, and I need your feedback by this time to get the project by this time. And then the other thing is you also find out you avoid working with people who you don't want to be in business with.
Right.
And I think that's a big one, especially when you're early in business, is you want to get every deal you can. Maybe it feels like you need every deal you can get. But I'll tell you, if you start doing a project with somebody who is not going to honor the process and you're avoiding that conversation because it's awkward and uncomfortable and you're afraid you're going to lose the deal, I'm curious of your perspective on this. My opinion is you are better off not doing business with somebody who is not going to follow that process than the otherwise.
Oh, all day long. Yeah. Because the amount of time that you put into that, you know what I mean? And the amount of energy that you'll put into something, you've got to just kind of talk through like worst case scenarios, right? It's just about being prepared.
100%. Well, a similar question I always love looking back on people's careers, and it's so eye-opening. I look back at some of the things I've done, and I'm like, I've had moments where I felt like I really knew what I was doing, and then years later, I look back, I'm like, wow, I didn't realize I actually thought I knew what I was doing. I was so green at the time. If you were to go back to talk to your former self on day one of getting into real estate, what's a piece of advice that you would share with yourself?
Oh, goodness. I would not, the advice I would say is don't try and do it all on your own and figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
I don't think I quite realized how crucial having the right team around you is and how much more you can accomplish with the right people in your world. And again,
Yeah.
that ties back into that scarcity mindset, right? Of feeling like there's not enough to go around. And once you can flip that switch in your head and realize that there is plenty of opportunity to go around and align with the right key players and team players, it's life-changing, life-changing.
Absolutely. And sometimes it can be a little scary to put some costs on your books, right? It's like, oh my gosh, if I hire somebody, now I've got another salary, right? But
Yeah.
I think a big part of that is in the book Good to Great, they talk about getting the right people on the bus and getting those people in the right seat. And when you can do that and you have that growth mindset rather than being concerned about, I mean, you do want to live being below your means, of course, like we talked about, and you do want to be mindful of your budget. But within that, you get the right people on the bus and you get them in the right seats, it's going to work out, especially with a resourceful team.
So every time I hire someone, still to this day, and I'm sending over their offer letter, I have to mentally tell myself, this investment is I'm betting on myself. Like this investment, this salary is I'm betting on myself that this will produce the results that we need it to produce. And this will give us the opportunity to get more market share or, do a different development or work with a different builder team. And so, yeah, I constantly reminding myself when I am hiring, because it is scary, right? When you're bringing on a $70,000 a year, salary or $80,000 a year, it's a lot, right? People depend on you.
Right. And you're depending on them.
Yeah, 100%.
In a certain way. Well, second to last question here for you, April. Thank you for all you've shared so far on this episode. I want to look at this from more of a legacy perspective. And so you have built something incredible, right? You've been involved with so many different projects. You've helped so many people find great homes in the areas that you focus on. And so what is it that you want people to remember about what you're building and the impact that you're making?
I would say I want people to remember someday when I'm no longer here that I wasn't afraid to raise the bar on the standards in life and to not be ashamed of that. To not apologize for wanting more towards what I would say the OCD-ness in me or the perfection in me, and to embrace that. I think there's a right way and a wrong way, and I choose to do things the right way. And I would say just hopefully my kids just look at me and say, there was no excuse with my mom. No excuses.
At some point they'll look back, whether they understand it now, and they'll say, I get it now.
Yeah.
Or she was right. Or wait a minute, why am I saying the same thing to my kids that my mom used to say to me? Because I find myself doing that all the time.
Yeah.
Last question for you, April. For those listening to the episode, who are in the Sun Valley and Boise areas, who are saying, wow, this woman really knows what she's doing, and I want to trust her to find a great home. How can people get in touch with you in the ways that you'd like them to?
Yeah, I would say reach out on our website, 208market.com. Is the best way to reach us, but we are very connected, not only in the Boise and Sun Valley market, but also in the McCall area, and well-versed on good investments, whether it's a rental property or a second home or your main home. We are a team that, whether or not you want to hear it, we're going to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly, because we want this to be a good long-term investment for you.
Yeah. Well, that sounds great. And I appreciate you taking the time to join me today and sharing all the insights of your career. And I know a lot of people have learned a lot from this episode. So thank you, April Florczyk, for joining me on the Leverage Podcast.
Thank you, John.